Okay, and we're live. So let me know if there's any trouble with audio or video. I think we've got a much better setup than the weekly stream. But we are going to look at this battered and bruised but much loved first edition of Siege of the Citadel. So this is the 1993 version of this board game that, if you saw that giant 2.5-hour unboxing, this is what they were remaking. This is the original version of this game. So this is done by Pressman Games, and yeah, it came out in '93. So it's an adventure game for 3 to 5 players, ages 10 and up. So take on the brutal mission after one brutal mission after another, in the face of the sinister Dark Legion. Nice. But yeah, and as you can see, this is open, so it's going to be a little bit hard to turn around. But yeah, this is a very thin. This is like a classical board game box. It's very thin and wide. So what you used to see stacked up in your basement closets. So yeah, and it's been repaired a little bit. So let me see if I can turn this over. So yeah, the art is very classic Mutant Chronicles art, and there's the Citadel in the background already. So here we go. Whoa, everything's moving. So there we go, 38 detailed miniature figures. And they give a little background. Siege of the Citadel. The jetting spires of the huge citadel reached through the smoke like a monster. Every attempt to take it had been shattered by the battle magic of the hideous Nephirites. Still, the Imperial infantry moved forward with a feeling so strong the mission might finally be realized. McHurst felt a surge in his chest. 3 other corporations would soon join the fight under the banner named Doomtroopers. In Mutant Chronicles, you control one of 5 corporations: Imperial, Cybertronic, Mishima, Capital, or Bauhaus. With your own unique expertise, you make decisions and plan your strategies. Each successful mission brings you to a new one with a different citadel layout and different events that can help or hinder you in battle. Each promotion gives you access to more powerful weaponry. The strike on the Nephirite is beginning. Grab your Punisher short sword and your plasma carbine and make your mark in the Mutant Chronicles. Nice. Oh, sorry. Let me tilt this up a little bit so you probably couldn't see that as I was reading, but get some of the glare off. This is see how bright the board is. So we'll take a look at what it looks like and then contrast that with what we have for the newer version. And here's the dashboards that look like picture frames almost. And look at these miniatures. Yeah, so I saw that Modifius on their original Kickstarter page, when they were promoting it, was showing miniatures that were going to be colored plastic like this to differentiate. But they later changed it to just coloring the bases. So the bases are different colored. All the figures are just kind of the neutral gray. But there is everything inside. So the contents are 10 heroes, 29 Dark Legion figures, so 12 Legionnaires, 5 Necromutants, 3 Centurions, 2 Razzide, 1 Nephirite, 1 Ezogul, and a deck of 84 cards. So yeah, the equipment, event, force cards, Doomtrooper cards, secondary mission cards, the 3-dimensional Citadel, which is this guy here. Yeah, we'll compare that to the new one as well. But this was, a pretty big deal. Like, if you got your board to be a little more 3-dimensional, it made it all that much more fun. And like they showed here, the insert in the box is, also the little steps of the Citadel itself. So 5 plastic hero trays, 5 hero sheets, the rules book, the mission book, 4 reference cards, label sheets for the little platform there, the dais, and 5 corporate markers, 9 dice, and 35 scoring pegs. Oh yeah, so it was just black pegs. Yeah, black pegs on these black boards. Now the faction colors are all decided that way. Yeah, so yeah, we're looking at 93 target games. And so this would be something that you could actually find in a toy store, or probably like a Sears or JCPenney's toy section back in the day, because distribution was much different. There wasn't, there were specialized hobby shops, but that was more for the pretty, hardcore tabletop and, historical miniatures and things. But this would have existed in very regular places, just like a lot of the early Games Workshop games did as well. All right, let's see if I can get this back around. Oh, lots of shifting going on. All right. So I've got the cards and everything have been sleeved. There's kind of a little bit of a storage solution going on in here. So let's take a look and see exactly what everything looks like inside. This is, 1993. So we're talking about almost 30 years ago. This is almost a 30-year-old game. But yeah, it's still very playable and still in decent shape. The only thing that has not survived, besides that, is the rule book. So when I got this, the rule book was not included. So it's one of those things that was just like uncoated paper, so it didn't make the transition. But we did get this flyer. So kill the mutants, save the world, read the books. So this is a promotion for the 3 novels. So Lunacy, Frenzy, and Dementia, and really, I guess the only, John Allen Price and Stackpole, Michael A. Stackpole, I think would be the most. Oh, it's not even two-sided, the most known author. But yeah, there's a flyer, and see, because it's a coated paper, it has survived all these years in decent condition. So here is what is inside and how it's kind of stacked up. So this was my solution when no rules were included. This was my solution. So as you can imagine, this is just an inkjet printout of the PDFs that are kind of floating around the internet. So I got a hold of one of those. So the PDF of the rules and the mission book, and I reduced them to a ridiculously tiny size. This is like a B6, B5, yeah. It's maybe a B6 folder. So the actual one I think is closer to a full like A5 booklet, like a letter sheet of paper folded in half. But let's just take a quick flip through here. So they show you, how to build the Citadel, how to construct your Ezegul. And it's right, everything is on slotted bases. I forgot about that. So some things have come off their bases because I don't think anything is glued. And here they're showing you the Doomtroopers that are included for each of the factions. Yeah, so they give you, of course the Modiphius 2nd edition went crazy with Doomtroopers. There was, I think 30 or some huge number. So you only got, the 10 originals. So Valerie Duvall, Max Steiner for Bauhaus, and then Murdoch and Gallagher for Imperial, and then Attila and Coral Beach for Cybertronic. Imperial, you get Big Bob Watts and Mitch Hunter, and then Yojimbo and Tetsu for Mishima. And as you can see from these drawings, the miniatures themselves are pretty funny. They're definitely of the 90s, like, huge hands, huge shoulder pads. Yeah, this is just a little overview. And there's very, very Rob Liefeld looking comics illustrations in this rule book. And it goes through the turn order and everything. This is all the rule books. Yeah, look at that. That is 90s Liefeld, Rob Liefeld, if ever I've seen it. So it's possibly somebody imitating that style, but that was, the Image Comics style of the early 90s. And here's the cards that have your Doomtroopers on. So you have a fixed team. If you choose your corporation and you have a fixed team. The 2nd edition lets you kind of mix and match between your favorite characters. And the setup and rules. Yeah, so you can see it was definitely a scan because it's very gray how it printed. But this is still readable enough to play the game. It's just not what originally came. And then here's the little mission book. So just like the other book, it shows you the configuration of the tiles for each of the missions as you progress through. And then the Dark Legion miniatures that are included. So yeah, like it said on the back, the Legionnaires, the Necromutants, the Centurions, the Nephirites, and Ezeguls. And then more bio about the Doomtroopers. Yeah, so they were just named here, and then on the inside, they give you little biographical information. Oh, that's pretty cool. Yeah, I think it's just the default Warzone little spiel. I think that even made it into the second edition because some of these look familiar. Like Valerie's is daughter of a prominent Bauhaus field marshal. Yeah. So I think this survived into the Modifius version. Yeah. This is definitely definitely of its time, but it's a little more waterproof now. I had a little plastic book cover to kind of keep it secured. So here is your slotted Citadel 3D slot, and it's still in really good shape. As you see, the art is the very classic kind of acrylic painted illustration that a lot of the cover work and stuff was done, and so some nice details, some really good kind of Nephirite details. So these look like all of the different versions of Algaroth's Nephirites. Oh no, and we've got the because this is semi and Algaroth's little symbols here. So yeah, it looks like it's broken up between the two. And I do have somewhere an expansion. There's a Swedish magazine that was supporting the Target games, and they did do supplemental missions for Siege of the Citadel First Edition that were more revolving around Cardinal Dominic, and I think you could use, they intended you to use the actual miniatures from Warzone to play in this game and give you missions, because of course, as you can see, the Brotherhood is not included, so you can add the Brotherhood with your Warzone miniatures. And so we'll set this up and kind of compare the scale of this in a bit. And here is how everything looks. So what should we do first? So here's these little info cards. Of course, these went in, the arches of the, it came as a cardboard sheet, and you can just punch these out. So you have your little stats for the 3, 4, 5, 6. So it's, there's another one in here that has the first ranks. And here's the tiles. Oh, wow, this is tiny. Wow. This is really tiny. Yeah, so here's your little dais. Yeah, everything, though, is scaled down smaller. So, yeah, there's the mark in the middle there is for a different Dark Apostle. So you can see, and only one-sided, too. Interesting. Yeah. That's where they got this. I was wondering, because the tiles themselves in second edition had these big numbers kind of stenciled on them, and they blended in well with the textures. But there's the one. I was wondering where that kind of idea came from. But yeah, instead of having to like number it on the back or just do something that wasn't part of the design just on the edge, they incorporated it with the design. So it looks like a sector number or something. But and the squares are much smaller. They're kind of the just barely 1-inch squares. So they handle the 25 mil bases that they give you. Yeah, interesting though, no two-sided, but look how brightly colored those are. Yeah, if you saw the Blood Berets unboxing we did, it's the same sort of thing. The jungle green is just so lushly green. Yeah, but everything is this, this smaller size. Yeah, and that's not even, that just rests right on there. And here are the dashboards. So you can... these kind of clip in there, as you can see, but you don't really need to remove them because there's only one for each. There's only 5 of the corporations and 1 of these for each. So they kind of, once you pop them in there, they don't need to come back out. But you do need to punch out all these little spaces to put them in. So you've got a bunch of these little black pins. So here's Capital and Mitch Hunter and Big Bob Watts. And yeah, just keep track of their credits and the extra actions, and then their life. How many hit points they've got. So yeah, but nothing. Oh no, they do give you your special tactic. So the Capital Doomtroopers are superior tacticians. Start each mission with 1 extra Doomtrooper card. Yeah, so you get your special ability based on your corporation in the middle, and then Imperial. So this is all. Of course, you probably recognize this character art from the RPG and the miniatures game, so they just repeated it everywhere. And so Imperial Doomtroopers have a keen sense of intuition. They gain 1 extra action at the start of each of their turns. So extra actions for Imperial. And so, yeah, that was Murdoch and Gallagher are your two Imperials that you're stuck with there. And Cybertronic, oh, here's where all the pins are. I was wondering because I didn't see them in a bag anywhere. So those are all the pins. Cybertronic Doomtroopers wear an advanced form of armor. So roll 2 dice to absorb hits. So you get extra armor saves. And Coral Beach and Attila Mark 3. Yeah, so wound markers. So everything's seated in there. And then Bauhaus. So you can see these are beveled. Yeah, they look like, kind of weird picture frames, but they have gears on them, and then they do have the Mutant Chronicles kind of embossed on the side there. So their branding is strong. Oh, but they're not square. They sit a little bit. That's interesting. They sit at a little bit of a raised angle, so it's kind of tilted a little bit towards you. And as you can see, it's not square. It kind of it widens at the top there. So very. I always thought these were square, but they're not. They're weird kind of parabolas. Strange. All right, so Bauhaus, what's the ability? So they're crack shots, and they roll an extra die when they attack with firearms. Nice. So ranged Bauhaus, and that's Valerie, of course, Valerie and Max Steiner. Art. Yeah, the graphics and everything have survived pretty well. Everything looks pretty it looks pretty intact as far as nothing's faded too much from sitting in a box for so many years. I mean, they're probably a little bit off color from where they used to be, but nothing too bad, nothing too faded. I mean, everything that's supposed to be white, as you can see from the little pieces there, the paper is yellowed, but other than the graphics are pretty sharp. So Mishima is Yojimbo and Tatsu, and they wear a lightweight combat armor which allows them to move 4 steps in their movement action. So extra fast. Yeah, so you've got a little bit of variation in play style between all of these. So let's take a look. Yeah, and just a regular old brown paper box here. And here, look at these. Here are the amazing Doomtrooper miniatures that you get included. So yeah, these are just insane. Wow. Yeah, so here, and oh, the other funny thing about them is, so they are color coded, but they give you stickers. So I don't know if you why do I get such a shadow here? As you can see, there we go. There's a little Cybertronic C on the back. So the kind of icons of each of the corporations are on the back of the characters to help you kind of identify. Yeah, because the look at the tiny head. Yeah, the likenesses are not amazing. They're not very uncanny. So really tiny heads, really big arms and feet, hands and feet. And of course, like super oversized weapons and shoulder pads. So classic 90s. Yeah, so Image Comics has taught everybody well. So there's Cybertronic. So Attila and Coral Beach. Wow. And here's Mishima with their blue for some reason. And there's their little logos. Ta-da. Yeah, isn't that great? Little stickers. The stickers are hanging in there too. That's one of those things I expected to kind of disappear from handling. So they're holding their swords high. That's crazy. And in black we get the Imperial. So Murdoch and other Doomtrooper here. Let me see. Yeah. So the detail's kind of lost in the black plastic. The Gallagher, Murdoch and Gallagher, and Bauhaus. Nice. Duvall and Steiner. Oh, look at this. Look at his heavy weapon here. It's crazy how. Yeah, and so as you can see, these aren't multi-piece. These weren't assembled somewhere, and they're just slotted. They're just figures with slotted bases. but everything becomes very one-dimensional. That, accounts for the awkwardness of the pose and kind of the weird proportions, is these are cast as one piece. So they are, like the Warzone miniatures can have multiple pieces, so they've got a little bit more dynamic posing and everything, but these board game pieces are, cast as one piece because they're board game pieces. So very similar to the old Army Men and all the plastic, astronauts and stuff from the 60s and 70s. They just advanced it a little bit. The plastic is nice and rigid, though. It's a nice stiff plastic. It doesn't bend at all, which means it will break. So this is this is capital. So here's Big Bob with his tiny head. So Big Bob, small head Watts. And Mitch Hunter. Yeah, they got the shoulder pads totally out of control. And see, look at his sword. He's holding a sword against his chest, and it's like literally one piece. There's no separation. So it's just a detail kind of cast on the front of him. So very squared, and they've got pretty obvious seams, because they're always going to have seams running through the middle, because they're single piece cast miniatures. Nice. And here's our little markers for maybe entrances and exits. And oh, there's a little bit of bend there on our Nephirite. Yeah, on his spear, his pole arm there. But yeah, as you can see, and look at the size of that hand. Nice. But it's it's definitely the single piece. And this poor guy, it gets worse too as the the Dark Legion gets bigger. Their bases, these little tiny bases, start getting more and more ridiculous, as you will see. So they color coded. That's nice. They color coded. So here's all of. I think this is just a single sculpt as well. Yeah, everyone is the same. So here's the Necromutants in green, and they're that's nice. They kind of make them diminutive. So yeah, next to your Doomtroopers, they look pretty tiny, pretty shrimpy. So yeah, a ton of your green Necromutants. And we'll save the biggest for last here. Yeah, but they stayed pretty intact, and because they're not painted, there are board game pieces. They can rattle around in the box and don't take much of a beating. Oh wait, it looks like no, it is a single pose. So it's like 19. But this is very standard. If you look at the first and even second edition of Warhammer, which is supposed to be a miniatures battle game, they they give you 20 or 30 miniatures, and it's all the same pose. So very nice. Is that all of our green guys? There's a couple more. Very boring when they're all lined up together. They are completely in sync. All right. And here's our Undead Legionnaires, it looks like, in red, so they're all easily distinguished. Yeah, so a lot of these guys too, because you're constantly spawning these in the game, so having a lot of them is necessary. But yeah, it's too bad. So wait, no, there is. Oh no, this is a different. Yeah, I think this is the other enemy as well. So there is another pose, but I think that's another enemy. Oh, and here's the Razzide. Yeah, so he should be a little bit bigger than that. I guess he's kind of equivalent in size to the. Yeah, he's a little bit bigger than the Doomtroopers, but Razzides are supposed to be hulking, massive figures. So the Razzides are in black, and then the other pose of the Legionnaires. There's two Razzides. The other pose. Look at these, and there's some extra bases floating around. There's another pose. So like a captain. I forget what the designation is. Yeah, so there's two of these guys, which are kind of the the leaders of the Legionnaires. All right, and last, look at this poor base. Last but not least, on a 25mm slotted base is our Ezogul. Now look at that pose, though. This was a multiple piece, and that's why it's, you know, a bit more three-dimensional and dynamic. This was a multiple piece. So there's a top at the waist here. It breaks, so that's why it can rotate. So two pieces kind of clamp onto a post there. So you get a much more dynamic pose because it's multi-part. But come on, they couldn't have given us like a 30mm base at least, or not 30mm, like a 50mm, double this size, so we could actually, you know, because he's going to take up 4 squares. I guess. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, so that's why they maybe made him more narrow at the bottom here, and he spreads out more at the top, so you can actually put miniatures like right up in adjacent squares next to him. That would look pretty good though on the board. All right. So we'll get back to the miniatures when we're doing comparisons. So here, yeah, the only thing that really didn't change at all from first to second edition are the dice. So you get 9 dice, 3 of each. And I think the red is a little bit more vibrant in the new version. But other than that, yeah, they're identical. The graphics and everything, they didn't change anything, which is nice. I mean, so that means you could actually use these in both editions. The dice are interchangeable. And here's our markers for, I think, determining like turn order and things for our corporations. So these just punched out of a card. But there is the classic eagle and shield of the first edition Mutant Chronicles. I like this. I mean, the stylized wing is okay, but everybody else is a round, is in a circle now. Oh, Mishima used to be a square too. Everyone else is in a circle now. So in the third edition, all the corporate logos, Capital really stands out because they've got this very angular graphic. So instead of putting things in bags, I just put this little kind of card, this slotted card holder, so I can kind of keep everything. And I found sleeves, they're just like 0.5 millimeter too short, but things are okay. And yeah, look how bright, you know, the inks and everything are very bright, even in the card design. And they didn't do, so here's our Doomtrooper cards. So we've got a bunch of Doomtrooper, and then the Dark Forces cards, secondary mission cards, the equipment cards. Let's take a look real quick at the, yeah, so they're very plain, just a border and a background color. Oh, they do graphics for the equipment though. That's nice. So you've got your Punisher short sword, your Violator sword, combat medic, yeah, all the stuff you've seen, except it's more line art. It's like toned line art instead of painted. Nimrod autocannon, plasma carbine, Violator combo, Deathlock drum, explosive ammo, grenade launcher, laser sight, Punisher short sword, Punisher, yeah, so we got some duplicates here. The Gehenna Puker, command helmet, the cybernetic power arm. Yeah, we've seen when we went through the other unboxing. Yeah, so they duplicated all of the equipment, molecular phaser, plasma carbine, Nimrod. Yeah, so they've got Deathlock drum again, coagulant auto injector, Violator sword. Yeah, seen another Puker. Oh, that's nice though. At least they do graphics for everything. A teleportal. Lots of equipment because that's what you're trying to upgrade. A targeting eye. All right, and now we're back to the event cards. Yeah, so the event cards are, yeah, a single event, and they're just the reinforcements that happen. So you draw event cards and more things are coming after you. More forces cards. And the second mission cards. So your forces, yeah, so it tells you what's coming in, and then you draw, and it tells you how many you're getting. Yeah, but oh, there's a little bit of art on the backs, but kind of more minimal, big chunky white borders, but and bright to kind of match the rest of the design. So that is everything that comes in the box. So the fun part is now going to be taking a look at, oh, let me stand these up actually. This is what we're going to do. Okay. So let's take a little bit of a look at a comparison. So this, we'll look at that. Whoa. Is the second edition. So here's your second edition Citadel kind of arches. And so yeah, in scale, yeah, look at the brightness and everything. Of course, this is kind of pre-digital art, maybe very earliest days of digital scanning, but I think, yeah, this is all painted, hand painted. It looks like illustrations, and this of course is all digitally done. Yeah, so they don't include any of the symbology. That's interesting. It's much more generic. Yeah, there aren't any symbols representing any of the Dark Apostles. It's just kind of a generic, but much, as you can see, much darker and more, you know, brooding and kind of cybernetic looking. So yeah, a big contrast. Look how bright. Everything is so bright. That's really funny. Yeah. And the scale is, yeah, the board is much bigger, but as we'll see with the tile sets, the reason that the board is, or the arch has to be much bigger is because the tiles are huge. They give you a lot more space. So here, let's take a quick look at what they did. Oh, I should have populated this with cards so you can get a better representation. But yeah, so here is our first edition tray. And here is the second. So you wouldn't permanently put cards like this is basically permanently in there. You could get it out, but it's just one tray per card. And so here is your set of wounds. They're calling it health. So here's your 5 spaces for each of your characters, and then here's also the slots for their equipment cards. And they have the smaller size, like the half-size cards, and then the more playing size card here, but they've got little divots, yeah, because you're going to have to put these in and out. You can mix and match your Doomtroopers, so you need to be able to pull them out. So your Doomtroopers here, and then the level that they're at. So I think as they level up, like with their promotion points, you can their skills change. So as you have it permanently listed here, you know what your corporation bonus skill gives you. As you level up, this changes, so you swap this out as well. But as you can see, it's a skinny little plastic tray. I mean, the graphics on the newer cards, you know, make it much more exciting. So I should have showed that as well. But yeah, it's very, yeah, much more standardized. And yeah, these stack and fit in the box much better. These are a little bit more unruly. I mean, literally, you know, probably a fifth of the box, 20% of the box is only these. So that's pretty funny. But they went with a more simple, generic, you know, kind of base. And that might be fun to actually, like, you know, paint these different metallics and things. And, you know, you can do some little wiring details and stuff to kind of spice them up a little bit, because they're pretty generic. But, yeah, you don't really want them to compete with the graphics on the tiles. So I think that works. And speaking of, here is a tile from, yeah, so here's the numbers. This is funny that they continued that completely from the first edition. I totally didn't see that. So yeah, so here's what we're looking at. So we're easily, it's not quite 2 inches, but it's pretty close. The second edition are not quite double, but at least 50% larger. So there's a lot more space in there. So as you can see, one tile is significantly bigger, so that arch has to be bigger to actually, you know, span these larger tiles. But they did stick with the same square. So, you know, a lot of tile-based games, they'll have all these, like, you know, jigsaw shaped, you know, corridors and things, which they do have some corridors for the new edition. but they still stick with the squares because you can kind of, slide these against each other in different configurations. But yeah, look at the difference though in the mood of the board. This is so bright, bright and happy 90s, and this is a very brooding digital style. And the other big advantage is you've got two sides, so you get twice as much real estate. Yeah, it's interesting that they didn't think to do that, because it would have minimized, made the box lighter, and you wouldn't have had to have things in the box. But I guess depending on their configurations, maybe you're always using 6 tiles, so there's not really an ability or a opportunity to do that. But yeah, there's more crazy texturing and everything. And yeah, the way that they represented the walls is a little nicer too. These bright white lines are pretty obtrusive. I mean, you can see them very clearly, but these kind of maintain the look. Wow, that is a huge difference. And so, as you remember, the second edition box is one of those square, really deep, standard, now a standard board game box, more in the golden age of this kind of renaissance of board gaming, that standard cubic size that fits perfectly in that IKEA furniture. Those IKEA shelves, you see so many people with their board games in there because they're cubes, they're just big cubes, so they fit a little stack of your board games well. So yeah, that looks it's a great update that they did. But the numbers, I totally didn't see that, because when I was unboxing, I was really struck that they went so big with the numbers. But that's a carryover from the original. All right. So the last thing that I wanted to do that I thought would be the most fun is just to contrast, what we're looking at between the new edition. So take a look at the new sculpts and what they did. And now, even though these pieces, they're probably cast multi-part, but they're pre-assembled. So now the factories and manufacturing is much more sophisticated. So you can cast multi-part pieces and then have them pre-assembled in a factory side. So you don't have to rely on that. So here's just so the Elgaroth Nephirite included. Yeah, pretty decent. So these are all going to be gray plastic. The newer ones are going to all be in the gray. But yeah, much more dynamic pose and the digital sculpting. I mean, these are probably taken from much more simplified wax sculpts. And of course, this is all Mudbox or ZBrush or whatever the artists are using to do these. So very detailed and very dynamic. But both of them have bent pole arms. Nice. So let's take a look at a couple more. Oh, since we're in the land of necromutants, let's take a look here. So yeah, not so shrimpy. They kind of scaled them up a little bit here. Let's try to get the decent light. Sorry, I'm getting nothing but shadow here. But yeah, they've got a nice detail to them. And yeah, all of the monsters. Yeah, where's my? Oh wait, let me just try to angle this a little bit and get you some better. Boom, boom, boom. Yeah, not really. Still pretty shadowy. But yeah, the scale is much more natural scale, and the detail is incredibly sharp. I can't believe how kind of geometric the older ones are. They're kind of these weird exaggerated looks. But oh yeah, and the bases themselves, yeah, it's definitely like a 25 versus 32 size bases, which even goes up to I believe a 50 millimeter. That some of the really big monsters go really large. Oh, and here's the Legionnaire. Whoa, yeah, that's a big difference in the pose. Yeah, this guy is so cartoony. Yeah, look at that pose is so. I guess he's supposed to be kind of bending down because he's almost holding his rifle like a guitar. So yeah, much more naturalistic, and the proportions are much more human scale proportions. Yeah, the colored plastic though, that's the one thing is people that don't intend to paint them, colored plastic is nice because right out of the box, you have easy visual differentiation, which I'll show you in a sec. They handled with base colors, but yeah, the Legionnaires are looking funny as well. All right. Okay. And here, save this for the grand finale, but I guess we'll do the characters. The characters will be fun to look at. But here is the, wow. And I actually think the original is bigger. That's funny. But here's our Ezagul's. Ezagul, yeah, the head and everything. Yeah, it is. It is actually much bigger. I mean, the pose is pretty, the detail, of course, is much crisper and a lot more cabling and crazy mechanical details. But yeah, the original one looks much bigger, and they did, so this is, yeah, it's on a 32, so it'll fit in a single square. But the way they sculpted it, not keeping everything kind of above its waistline, means that you're not going to be able to put the other Doomtrooper miniatures and people attacking in adjacent squares. And with this the design in the first edition on the right there, they definitely had that in mind so that you could actually get into an adjacent square. I think you're going to have trouble with the newer one putting them right next to each other. But yeah, that's a that's a really funny update. I love the contrast there. I mean, it is really a board game piece, versus a gaming miniature. You can really see the difference. But still, these are the quality of these are not as nice as miniature wargaming miniatures that come on sprues are as well. So it's still this is in realm of kind of boutique or collector's board game quality, but it is still a board game miniature. Yeah, but look at that tiny little sad base. I can't believe they put this giant guy on this little tiny base. That's really funny. But yeah, the original was larger and a little bit posable because he had that articulated. And it looks like, yeah, he doesn't have a seam. This guy doesn't have a seam at his base. But yeah, that's a real interesting contrast. All right, so let's take a look at a few of our heroes here. Oh no! So here is yeah. wait a minute. There they are. The wait, what color are they? I'm looking for the Imperial. This is, oh, they're not the gray. They're red. Oh no, that's right. They're in the black. Imperial is black. That's right. That's very confusing. All right. So here's Gallagher and Murdoch. Yeah, the it's a human scale. So here's the Gallagher miniature. It's really funny. Let me see if I got another light here. I might be able to, because the characters could use some. Let's see. Could definitely use some better lighting. Let's see. Yeah, that helps a bit. There's Gallagher. Yeah, but look at it, much more kind of heroic scale. His sword is just, like a gigantic club. But yeah, these are much more human scale. But of course, yeah, really dynamic poses, not that flat kind of, Egyptian Egyptian hieroglyphic art kind of flat pose. Wow. And here's Murdoch. Yeah, but there's still something so charming about that. The way that was done. Why am I getting these crazy shadows? There we go. Yeah, not that those guys aren't too far off just because of the scale of those guns. It's pretty crazy. But yeah, you can definitely tell it's from a different time. So let's look at Mishima next. Oh no. So here's Tetsu. I think Tetsu lost his top knot on the my first edition. He's got a little chip there. So that's the bad part about them rambling around in the board game box together. But yeah, again, the pose is so much nicer on the human scale. It is good, but there's a great kind of charm and exaggeration from these board game pieces. And then Yojimbo. Wow, yeah, the pose is yeah, you can't. There's no comparison. There's the Yojimbo difference. That's really nice. Yeah, and of course they can come much further off the miniature. His helmet has, much more defined horns and parts, but yeah, it's really funny. Yeah, it really has that really funny dated feel when they're so that single piece. I mean, I think that was a huge evolution in miniatures when they did multiple pieces. When factories or you're buying things on sprues, so they can just break things up. So this is Cybertronic. So here's oh, sorry, I'm mixing them up. Oh no, that is. Let me see here. Yeah, sorry, that was Coral Beach. So here's Attila. Yeah, Attila's a little. Yeah, I gotta say both Attila and Big Bob Watts in the second edition are not hulking. They're kind of tiny. And because they gave them a human scale, so maybe they didn't want to do any exaggeration. But look at the 90s one. That's a much more hulking, massive figure. There's a nice dynamic running pose here, but you don't get the intimidating physique. And where'd he go? Oh, wait. And here's Coral Beach. Yeah, so that really is a yeah, because this is what everyone was doing. Everyone that was producing plastic miniatures in these the starter kits that came out, and even the Warzone plastic starter 2-player starter box. The poses were very 90s. They they looked like the Gretchen from the Warhammer Warhammer second edition and all of that. They had that yeah, it's just a big jump in technology. And it went from board games to actual miniatures. That was Coral Beach. And let's do I don't know. Who do we want to see? Oh, here, this is another huge difference here. So it looks like it looks like we're going from Fisher Price to yeah. So Valerie Duvall's looking a little Fisher Price. Or what is that? Like the new ones that they're doing, the Marvel and Star Wars and everything, and the little people kind of look. But she's looking a little bit like that. They tried to make her feminine, and she just like a little kid. Little 7-year-old girl with a sword and a pistol. So yeah, really funny. The contrast. Wow. All right, let's see Max. Oh, again, yeah, we've got that same kind of thing here though, where we're looking at the older Max, and he's much more hulking. Much more. A much more intimidating presence. He doesn't have this amazing realistic flowing cape though, but he does have his foot up on something for aiming, I suppose. But yeah, the Max Steiner is much chunkier, exaggerated but chunkier looking. And yeah, they're both helmeted though. That's good. Yeah, I guess they did a helmeted and unhelmeted version. I wasn't sure. Because the card itself, so the book shows unhelmeted, and the card itself, of course, goes with the helmeted art, just like the all the kind of classic Max Steiner art. But yeah, they are very very funny difference. Oh, we didn't. Oh, here, let's jump back to the monsters real quick. I don't think I showed you the Razzide. There we go. They got the scale a little bit better in the second edition, so the Razzide is. Bulky and tall, so closer to that scale, because in the comics and things, when you see the Razzide, he's just like filling the room, and human scale is much smaller, so that's better. He's kind of his head is kind of collapsing into his chest in the 90s version. And this though does look like it's pretty close to one piece. Whoop. Sorry, it's pretty close to one piece for the newer version though, because he's pretty one-dimensional. It looks good though. I mean, they still have all the detail. Oh no, he breaks it. He breaks at the waist. All right, and our last set is Capital. So here is Not So Big Bob Watts. Yeah, it's the same thing. The 90s one has the bigness at least. Yeah, I think that's one of the miniatures I wish they would have gone a little bit more exaggerated with. And maybe they were just afraid that doing that only to one or two characters would be a little weird or insulting or whatever. But I wish Big Bob was just bigger. He's medium Bob. But yeah, they get that across with these ridiculous shoulder pads in the 90s version. But yeah, that mono pose is pretty brutal. All right. And here's our Mitch Hunter comparison. Yeah, he is kind of a mess. The sculpt, they tried to make it a little bit more interesting. So instead of holding his arm out and sideways to his side, he's holding it across his chest. But look at that. That just makes it one weird profile piece. His sword is just like multiplying into his body. So yeah, the newer pose, the 2018 version has a nice, dynamic pose. And it was nice. I think they did a lot of illustration reference. So even if it was a newer illustration from the RPG, there's nice dynamic poses that are referencing specific illustrations of these characters. So you get that feeling a lot. It makes them a little bit more iconic in their look. But poor Mitch. Yeah, there is a not Playmobil, but Play School. Yeah, like Play School, like Fisher Price. Fisher Price look to some of the 90s guys because of their smoothness and their silly proportions. But yeah, so that is a quick look at the contrast between the two sets. So it was, I think you have to, give it to Modiphius for being able to update a board game. And still, they maintained a lot of the feel. Like everything looks the way that it's supposed to look. There's nothing that's completely, a completely different take or a completely different design. And they were working, with some pretty basic, they had to move ahead and not make you put stickers on everything. But that's right. So that means all the Doomtroopers have a huge box on their back. They're carrying like an Uber Eats cooler bag because they need to have their icons on the back. Yeah, and slotted bases. That's really funny. But yeah, this is still where they're trying to figure out how to, they got to cheaply produce a lot of plastic for a board game, but still make it something that the people that are starting to get into wargaming, and of course the wargaming miniatures for at least the first edition are all metal. Yeah, so I guess this would be fairly collectible. I mean, this I think a sealed box, like an unpunched sealed box of this, might get you a couple $100. You can get a used copy probably easily under $100. This one was missing the rulebook, so I think I got this pretty cheap. But yeah, relatively collectible, and they're gonna, as they start to kind of disappear, get more and more damaged, and you can find a lot of incomplete versions and maybe just buy a couple and combine them. Hopefully they're not all missing the same piece. But you can make complete boxes. But I've seen a couple of people showing off kind of unpunched because all of this card and everything came in big sheets that you had to punch out. So and these as well, like these markers as well, came on a sheet along with these guys. So maybe an unpunched and even like still factory sealed set may be good. But as we saw when I unboxed a factory sealed Blood Berets, even if it's sealed, the foam starts to fall apart, decompose a little bit. Like things can still get a little moldy and a little funky inside a sealed plastic, because it's just cellophane, so it's not vacuum sealed. And maybe originally it was close to that, but after time the seams start to break. So depending on where they're stored, there's going to be moisture and everything inside. But this is more a historic. A piece of history, because and that's amazing that the second edition came almost 30 years later from and because of the delays of production for the Kickstarter, because of the pandemic and everything. It literally was when I got everything, it was 30 years after this original board game was out. So I think it definitely could have used an update. And because the company went out of business in 99. So only 6 years after this was produced, the company that made this setting and everything was totally gone. So, these miniatures and everything there was nobody that was going to be updating them anytime soon. So it's really great that I think, Chris Birch at Modifius was a big fan of this setting. And so they licensed it, did the role-playing game, and then did Siege of the Citadel. I mean, that's a dream come true for people that this is all that they had, because it definitely remains frozen in time, just like the kind of old Hammer 40K Space Marines. They are really cartoony, and it does help you not take this setting so seriously, because it is a pretty ugly setting of greed and corruption and constant warfare and murder. But so when the characters look like this, you can't you can't feel so bad when they've got that little play school proportions. But so as things like Warhammer 40K, and now as this setting is advanced, it is taking itself a bit more seriously. So the satire of it, I think it's good if you can maintain some of the satire of what they're talking about, because all of this is definitely inspired by 60s sci-fi, and kind of the fall of technology is based on the war against the machines that you see in books like Dune and things like that. So wow, these are these are the game pieces. And as you can definitely see, this is anything that you would have gotten in a game, in a board game, would have had this same sort of quality plastic. But it's pretty great that it's not breaking down at all. Like, you don't see, there's not any discoloration. Maybe he used to be whiter. It's very possible that he was more of a bright white when he was 30 years younger. But it's nothing is particularly crumbly or because I've had I bought older kits that are on sprues, and the plastic gets a little crumbly. So this older plastic definitely hangs in there, because it didn't it never had to be in pieces. So that's a pretty nice thing, is that they don't have any of the haven't decomposed or kind of gotten like brittle in any way or discolored. They've really hung in there. But so this, so just for some perspective, looking at these on one of these tiles is a very different situation from if you've seen anybody take photos of their playthroughs. Look at the just holding everything out, in that kind of weird two-dimensional spread eagle look. It does make it, and it makes standing, you can't in certain positions stand right next to each other, because you're just like pointing your rifle right at everybody's head. But this is the still the thing I think I'm most impressed about with this original design is you've got this huge miniature, and everybody can be right adjacent to it, because they sculpted it well enough that everything's out of the way. That's a really obviously the people that were designing this for a board game had some experience with actual board games, because they knew that you needed to put stuff in squares next to each other. And when everyone's got everything coming off of it, especially because they're trying to put all this plastic on a little tiny base. Nice. Yeah, so that is the Siege of the Citadel First Edition. So yeah, yeah. So here's a look at that, and yeah, they don't even stay. These are the updated guys. So yeah, you couldn't, if you scanned these and did like a 50% size up, you could use the new miniatures on the old boards. But as it is now, or or if you took them off of these bases and put them on 25. But yeah, you can't use the old tiles at all because they just are too big. They're coming out of the squares everywhere. Yeah, it's funny. So they can't be adjacent or anything. I mean, they kind of can be. You're gonna maybe lose your position a little bit if there's too too much moving around. But yeah, the colored plastic. I'm curious why. And maybe it was a production, like a cost reason. But I'm curious why they went away from the colored plastic, because it is a board game, and there are going to be probably a majority of people, at least half, that haven't that aren't ever going to paint them. So them being different. Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah, Gonzalo. Yeah, definitely. I agree with you. The especially the Rogue Trader, that first Rogue Trader book, like the whole sensibility of that is really charming. Like the setting takes itself so seriously now; it's like a religious text. So that satire and more of the kind of parody of the Roman Empire that it used to be was much more charming. And I think that's still a thing that Mutant Chronicles has, is it's still over the top, because you have units in capital wearing football helmets and cowboy hats, and and so it changes the look. Yeah, Wounded Warg. Yeah, so the Brotherhood. There was a supplement in Secudus. I forget the name of the Swedish magazine. So the Swedish magazine that supported kind of Chronopia and Mutant Chronicles, they had a supplement that's floating around as a PDF that has rules for using Brotherhood miniatures in the first edition game. But you would, of course, have to use the metal miniatures from Warzone. So there wasn't ever a supplement, like, an expansion or anything for first edition published. But they did give you rules and missions for the Brotherhood. But they expected you to then, use your Cardinal Dominic or some of the named characters, named Brotherhood characters from, and I forget who they paired him with. I forget if it was Nicodemus or who but I remember specifically that there was artwork for Cardinal Dominic, and they did make a miniature, a Warzone miniature of him. But but it's something you'd have to go seek out, and it was something. But in the same way that they did for Blood Berets, you could play Venusian Rangers in Blood Berets, and they did include cards for the Bauhaus army, the Bauhaus force, in the box, but the rules for them, like the missions for them, were in like a magazine, like a supporting magazine. So that same way, you'd have to use your Warzone miniatures. Like they only gave you Blood Berets in the box. But if you had a Bauhaus force, you could put the Venusian Rangers in place of the Blood Berets. So you could play as Bauhaus instead of Imperial. And you may have even been able to play in certain missions. I don't remember in that expansion if you could play Mega Corporation against Corporation. I think it was, it may have been Bauhaus versus Imperial. Yeah, maybe Crenshaw. I'm not sure if... who they paired. I can't remember the what artwork was in that expansion. But if I find that, I'll put that. I'll do that on stream sometime. We'll take a look at the expansion that they did, and actually that magazine might be fun to go through. If I could find the scans of that old magazine. They did in English. It was a Swedish and then an English edition, but it had some really nice rules for expanding things. And I think actually that's what made it into some of the role-playing was also expanded. Yeah, and a few of those collections that they did for the role-playing game, those came from translated articles from that magazine as well when they're expanding things. So if you spoke Swedish, I think you got all of the supplemental materials first, or you read Swedish. Nice. Yeah, yeah. That was nice that they were able to actually do that. And it made sense because they, were producing that, the line of the metal miniatures that you could supplement. And, they had these kind of wacky proportions. So they fit, like aesthetically, they looked good. The metal miniatures would blend in with these guys just fine. And yeah, something like this in metal, I bet they did produce that. I think I have seen that. So something this large, they didn't even do resin. That was the thing that was amazing. Some of the vehicles. So in the 90s, I think they were just beginning to experiment with resin, or just so things that were of scale, like tanks and airplanes and stuff, they were doing like solid pieces of the white metal casting. So those were some heavy miniatures. But I think there is a metal Ezegul. I don't think he's quite this scale, but an all-metal version of him does exist. Yeah, it's probably closer to this. But yeah, it's come, digital sculpting has come a long way, and it's really changed things. I think it's also made, multi-part so much easier, because you can do really complicated seams and hide things really well. It's not always the, most obvious. Like, there aren't lines down the middle of miniatures' heads anymore, like there used to be. Yeah, and this pre-assembled, this was, this is multiple pieces that were put together in a factory. That changes the game. the board game, literally. It changes things a lot for what you can actually do. That's why we're in this age of, so many licensed board games and things with these really complicated, like Monster Hunter and, Bloodborne, and there's so many insane board game miniatures now that go really far beyond what they even imagined. Not that well, I guess 30 years is a long time ago. I keep saying not that long ago, like it was yesterday. But yeah, I love the delivery bags on their backs. Yeah, it was a good choice though. I think, and even better than the rings, that was a real common gimmick too, is the clip-on rings on bases. So miniature games have that kind of base cap that you put on, so you get a band of color around the edge. So they could have just, done everything cast in gray plastic and then gave you a little ring to clip on. But I'm glad they did the colored bases, even though, and I think this is a China problem, like many things in life. I think it's a China problem and not but look at those are supposed to be the same color, green, and they're not even close. Yeah, so that this is all Cybertronic, and the expansion color plastic and the original color for the bases is not the same. So I was really worried about that with the cards. But it doesn't appear that they were pretty well, the color palette on both the expansion cards and the core box, the original core box printing of the cards. It looks the same, so I didn't see any huge difference. I think it was that the Pathfinder card game that had really bad problems, because all of their backs were just the Pathfinder logo. And they were different colors of yellow with every generation, like every expansion of those boxes of that game. Oh, hey, thank you, Joe. Oh, excellent. Well, thank you for tuning in. Yeah, it's an early, it must be an early morning of board games for you, but much appreciated. Thank you so much for watching. And all of this, hey, is part of. Oh, cool. Yeah, metal. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, the proportions of that must be, yeah. I think they did a good job of designing it for the board game. There we go. And put this up there. Yeah. Yeah, the color differences, I think, are just, they were printed at different times. And yeah, so you can, even that out with paint yourself, if you're going to paint the miniatures. But it's just a Chinese thing, that seems to happen a lot. If you do production and then you go away and you come back, because you probably aren't even dealing with the same people, so who knows what color plastic pellets you're going to get for your bases. But I've seen that happen a few times, is you just can't get identical production. And even quality. And that was the thing too. I think I was pointing out when we were doing the unboxing, the core box set, the cards are not such nicely coated cards. They're pretty thin. The coating on the cards is pretty thin. And then the expansion cards are much heavier and much nicer, so they feel much more durable. So there's actually, it doesn't look like a color difference, but there's a quality difference, like a thickness, and the coat that they did on the actual cardstock itself looked different. So the link that I just put up on chat is the premiere link for part 7 of the Complete Mutant Chronicles. So we finished the first chronicle. It took us 7 episodes, but we finished the first chronicle. So that is the premiere, the kind of the placeholder premiere page for that. And yeah, so it will be in just less than 12 hours. We'll do the premiere of that. But yeah, I wanted to take a quick look here. Yeah, so the total minutes is getting pretty out of control. So let's see. We've got, what's it, 24, 36, 49 and a half, 65 and a half. What is that? 65, 87, and then plus, this is another 23. So 87 plus 23, whoa, there's 100 minutes. Yeah, so there's 100 minutes of Mutant Chronicles lore now. Wow, yeah, so we are feature length. I think 90 minutes, what is feature length? Oh yeah, thanks. Yeah, so the Complete Mutant Chronicles, the first chronicle will finish. And so the end of the first chronicle puts us like right where most of the games are based. So the kind of default setting for the original role-playing game, Warzone, and even I think like the Doomtrooper card game is all right at that era where Cardinal Dominic takes over. The Brotherhood is, corrupt. Everybody's kind of corrupt and everybody's at war. So after the midst of the Second Corporate War and the Second Dark Legion War is where everything takes place, because then you have all of the forces present. Cybertronic's been created. The Brotherhood's been established. Like everything throughout the history has already come to pass. So if you want to kind of get players up to speed, if you're going to play in that Dark Legion era, Dark Legion setting, if you just take them through the videos or just give them that link, that gives them all of the background for how everything was established. And only one of the videos, which is not in that playlist, I actually went with the spoiler-free version, but the Cybertronic had a few. There's a version of it that has some spoilers that go a little bit too far into the Duran brothers' involvement, which may be something you want to keep away from your players. But yeah, if you want to play the new Warzone, and that's the thing, I'm really curious if they're going to screw with, or not screw with, if they're going to incorporate some new ideas or new, kind of new events in the Warzone Eternal. So the in production right now, newest version of Warzone, the miniatures game, is Warzone Eternal, and they're going to, be taking place right at that part of the setting, right at the end of the first chronicle is when everything kind of gets going. So yeah, this will take you up to speed. And I touched on, I did kind of an overview as well of the tribes of Old Earth, which is something that the Modifius 3rd edition of the role-playing game kind of backgrounds, and it's a shame because it's a really interesting part of the setting, but they really wanted to promote. Hey, thank you, Sandorado. Much appreciated. Very cool. Thank you for the donation. Yeah, appreciate it, and thank you for the support. But yeah, so Modifius, I don't think a lot of the older players, and especially players that like really fell in love with that Dark Eden setting right as Target Games went out of business. Like it was a really cool, kind of very post-apocalyptic setting that they came up with back on Old Earth. And Modifius kind of said, okay, there are these tribes, but they're not as dominant as this new faction that we came up with, which is White Star, the kind of Russian faction. So I think Modifius wanted to get a faction that could actually leave Earth And so that's why they backgrounded the tribes, because they were low tech enough that they couldn't really, they didn't, hadn't reestablished space travel or anything. Yeah, right now it's pretty much unwritten. They've suggested where things might go, and right now I'm not sure what, because Modifius has so much going on. They just did the new Dune board game, and they released the other post-apocalypse. I'm totally blanking on the name, but the video game, The Vault, where you come out of the vault. God damn. Yeah, so they've got so many licensed IPs that Mutant Chronicles was one of the first ones that they had done, the first licensed game that they had done. And so I'm not sure where that's going to go, but that might be something that Warzone Eternal might handle. Because I've seen there was kind of floating around on the internet is artwork that different artists had done for various expansions to the Doomtrooper board game, or kind of fan projects or things. So there's been a lot of people. Fallout. God damn, thank you, Wounded Ward. Yeah, Fallout. Yeah, so they just released the Fallout RPG as well. So Modifius is really busy. So Dune is coming out, and then Fallout RPG just came out. So they've got licensed properties for days. And so I'm not sure Mutant Chronicles is going to get the attention if they're going to go back. But maybe if people get interested, watch some of these lore videos and actually get interested in playing it, and they see people actually, playing the game, and the interest in the property goes up, it could happen. But I did see, so floating around were the lost tribes of Luna. Like, so somebody had an idea that because humanity did get to, I think basically Capital got to the moon very early, and they established, and there was kind of a tension immediately between the Earth and the moon, and kind of there's a couple of plot lines about using weaponry on the moon to sabotage the Earth, and setting up kind of a doomsday trigger on the moon. So there's a couple of interesting things in the lore. The lore has some things about early Luna. And someone was going to introduce, I think, to the Doomtrooper game, kind of an expansion that went beyond anything that was published so far. And I think it was called like the Lost Tribes of Luna. So it was more of the kind of Dark Eden, except on the lunar landscape. So a little bit differently. But I don't think that didn't go anywhere. And we will see. But yeah, so far Dark Eden is the furthest extent of where the lore has gone, because everything's kind of established there. So we may see some development, because if the company that's producing the Warzone Eternal, they may be wanting to contribute something to the IP itself. And who knows though what the actual license, because they're licensing this from Cabinet Entertainment. I think the Swedish company that owns all those licenses. So they're licensing it, and they have terms of, what they can do, what they can talk about, and what they can change. So Modifius obviously, was allowed to make those kind of changes to add a faction on Old Earth. But we'll see what I'm totally blanking on the company. It's Resnova. I think Resnova is the company that's doing the Warzone Eternal. So they may contribute something, at least maybe some new units, or some, kind of, other named characters or something, because they can continue the timeline, beyond the Dark Legion era, or even Dark Eden. Oh, it would be great though if they did the tribes. Yeah, I'd love to see the more updated sculpts of the Lutherans and the Sons of Rasputin and stuff. I'd love to see, because those are crazy designs, and it'd be nice to see, this kind of modern detail on those types of characters. Because I don't even think the Protoss version, Warzone Resurrection, I don't think they did the tribes. I think they stuck with the 5 basic megacorporations. So yeah, we'll see what happens. But yeah, this is a little, yeah, time, a little time travel. This is a pretty intact time capsule from 30 years ago. And this is what, yeah, pretty advanced tactical board games looked like in the 90s, in the early 90s. It's a shame. I can't believe that literally 6 years after this was made, the company's gone. That seems to happen with European tabletop companies. Because I'm thinking of like the Confrontation. What is the thinking on a live stream is not my strong point. The company that did Confrontation, like they just disappeared, like mysteriously, like, you know, went bankrupt and their funding disappeared as well. So these properties, these amazing properties, like these great writers and artists involved in developing these properties, and then they just, you know, financially go belly up, and we're left with these like incomplete ideas. Nice. Well, thanks, Warg. Yeah, thanks for hanging out. Yeah, and I'm glad. It was interesting to see the original game because, yeah, it is a big step forward that the second edition took. But you can tell that they were paying attention. Like they had the original game and they were looking at how, you know, how it could be played better and how it could be, you know, updated. But still, yeah, things like the big numbers on the tiles and everything, that really lets you know that they had it. All right. Well, take care. Thanks for hanging out. Oh yeah, yeah. Really, I'm really curious to see because they're going to do multi-part. Like they, one of the designers that's working on it, he's got a YouTube channel, and he was showing some of the prototype miniatures, and they're going to give us sprues. So that's going to be great, or at least, you know, that's what it seems like. You know, they're going to be multi-part kits. Nice. Yeah. Yes. Hey, prototype. Prototype body hammer, very cool. Yeah, yeah, it's great. It's so fun to compare both editions, and I want to look a little deeper at the missions and things because I'm curious what Modifius, you know, thought they needed to do because, you know, a 30-year time lag, like board games have gotten really sophisticated, so people's expectations of, you know, how missions are going to play and what kind of mechanics, you know, how like sophisticated, you know, things that already feel like maybe too old school. I'm wondering if there's things that they just avoided because they weren't really part, you know, they'd kind of fallen out of fashion. So if they're really going to stick to, you know, the authentic feel of the original Mutant Chronicles, or, you know, they added enough. So I'll find that out with a playthrough. But I think comparing the campaigns would also tell you a little bit about that, because it does seem like everything as far as the card mechanics feel very much the same. Like, you know, the event cards and the equipment cards and everything function pretty much the same, but giving you a wider selection. Well, the upgrades as well, the way that they're handling the upgrade system in second edition seems to you know, add more challenge and make you much stronger. So that means the campaign is going to have to ramp up as well. But yeah. Oh, that would be great. Yeah. Yeah. I never got any of the Protoss miniatures. I heard they're all resin. I think those kits were all resin. Somebody was talking about that Protoss, like their heart, they did a decent job, but their heart really wasn't in their version of Warzone because they had like their own original IP that they wanted to be working on. So when they lost the license, then immediately, you know, they just kind of moved over to the original project, you know, like their own original setting that they wanted to do. But yeah, I've seen a lot of images, and I really want to get the rulebook for the previous Warzone Resurrection, because they did it. The one thing that they did do is a really nice job of giving a lore summary. Like some of the writing that they had in that rulebook was pretty impressive. They didn't have to, especially for the, you know, miniatures game, they didn't have to go so deep into the storyline and the lore, but they really wrote some great stuff. They gave you the feel of that setting really well, kind of the ugly, desperate, you know, kind of dangerous nature of the dark symmetry. They capture that really well in their kind of their fluff section in the middle of that rule book. But I just downloaded the free PDF. Like once they lost the license, they just put stuff, rules and everything up for free. So I downloaded the PDF of the rule book and read through what they wrote about the setting. And yeah, they did a nice job setting the tone. But yeah, I hope they do. I hope they have and they would be smart, because, you know, then that would be like, you know, like a backwards compatibility, because then if you that would take the pressure off of them as far as having to produce every unit as quickly as possible, and they could kind of slowly ramp up the game. And if they had players that had the Protoss miniatures and they worked in the same scale and they were close enough in design that you could use them, they could just start writing rules for existing units and then come up with their own versions of those. Because I think you can only buy used and trade back and forth the Proto stuff, because it's not in production anymore, and I don't think there's 3D printing files or anything of them anywhere. So that would be it's going to be an interesting move, and it might have to do with their license as well, whether they're willing to do that or not. Write rules for stuff that they may never produce, just because it already exists. But but they'll never be able to make this scale and everything look compatible with these poses. Yeah, it's a very that was definitely the thing with all the old 90s stuff, and even Warhammer and everything was at this exact same stage. Like, everyone was doing this one piece, single piece, very flat pose. So they look like old, tin soldiers. Basically, it was the technology, from the 50s still, just in plastic. Nice. Well, great. Well, thanks everybody for hanging out, and check out. Oh, that's the premiere. Here, let me. If you haven't seen, let's see. This should be the link. If you haven't seen our series. See if this works. That should be the playlist for the complete Mutant Chronicles. So join us in about 12 hours if you want to see the conclusion of that. So part 7 is premiering soon, and that'll get you up to speed. So that's the first 6 parts. And the trailer too. Yeah, that's right. I was like, how is there 8 videos but the trailer? Our early trailer is in there too. And if you want to watch it right now, take a look at our Patreon. So, what is it? Patreon.com/idleredhands. I'll give you a link on that as well. And that will get you... Sure it will. Come on. Oh, it's giving me... That's right. It's giving me the... I'm already logged in. And this will get you immediate access if you want to watch it. It's almost 24 minutes long, so it's our longest one so far. And if you want to read the novels, it's our longest video so far. But because it was wrapping things up, there was really no place to cut it. Like, I didn't think like doing the second Corporate War and then the second Dark Legion War would make much sense, because it just kind of ramps up into the conclusion. Like, as soon as the second Dark Legion War starts, that's when the first Chronicle ends. That's when Warzone happens and the Doomtrooper card game is set, and all the kind of freelance work of the original role-playing game is happening. But yeah, so take a look at that, and I'm really curious to know what you guys think, and if there's anything that that we missed in that original run through. Oh yes, no problem, Joe. Thanks. And then, so once that's released, once part 7's released, the big thing that I'm going to need from everybody that's watching the series is to know what you want to see next, like what direction. Because now that we have the timeline is finished, we have the chronology of the first Chronicle done. Now we can do anything. So we can focus on specific times, like focus on Dark Citadels, the details and kind of lore behind those, because everything was touched on in the series, but very kind of briefly. So it'll be nice to do deeper dives into the lore and give more detail. So if you are running a Mutant Chronicles campaign, or playing Warzone, or doing something that you want, there's something specific that would be really fun to see as a lore video, yeah, let us know, like just in the comments under this stream, or hit us up anywhere, even the Gmail, idleredhands@gmail, and let us know what the next step would be. I've got a couple of ideas, but I'm really curious because I know specifically I've heard from game masters that are running Mutant Chronicles, and they're using the lore videos as kind of, primers for their players, so they don't have to kind of at the beginning of a session or beginning of a campaign do that huge info dump of this is the world, this is the setting, this is what's happened. You can just send them a link to one of the videos, and they can get the background on Cybertronic or whatever, and then when they come up in the setting, you'll know what is common knowledge, what everybody kind of knows, or what we kind of suspect things. So there's suggestions. There's a lot of rumor and conspiracy that exists in this setting, and we just kind of touch on it. We don't flesh anything out too much, and leave it open to the game master to decide how much how deep the players get into that and what they find out about things. So so that is going to be the big job coming up next is figuring out where to go. I mean, it'd be fun to do videos on individual named characters, kind of their backgrounds and everything we know about them so far, or specific battles in the war, specific confrontations, because there's so many things that we touched on from the First and Second Corporate Wars. So a lot of nice detail. Yeah, and people have asked already in some of the comments, a few things have come up, and tried to give explanations without totally blowing stuff, but you realize how each part of the lore you can go really deep on, and somebody has in one of the expansions for the role-playing game or somewhere, or even Warzone, they've gone pretty deep into the interactions like between the tribes of Old Earth, or kind of how certain corporations work together secretly to make things happen. Or we could just do a whole video about like what bastards Imperial are and how many times they broke seals and like released the dark symmetry, because it was a lot. It happened a lot. The chronology videos that we did now just say, something happened and the seal was broken. But if you know the lore, it's always Imperial. Imperial is always responsible for wrecking things. But and I think that's just the guilt, the British Empire guilt that maybe some of the designers felt or had. You could always blame it on Imperial. All right, but thank you so much for hanging out and going through the old. Let's one more time. Let's take a look at the old logos. I love these old logo. So that was really tough. For the kind of overview of the tribes of Old Earth, I went to my old Dark Eden book and did scans as best I could. Did scans of the logos for each of the tribes, and they're really great. But I couldn't. Yeah, when you're dealing with HD or even 4K, a lot of this printed materials, like you can't. No matter what resolution you're scanning at, you're still getting a lot of dot patterns and stuff. So they're pretty rough looking. A lot of the graphics are going to be pretty rough. But yeah, look at that. The old school C for Cybertronic. The wonderful shield and eagle of Capital. Yeah, I totally forgot that Mishima was always a square. And I guess they did it as a square because then it's not the rising sun. It's not the pre-war Japanese rising sun flag. So if it's a square with an M in it, it takes away from that as well. But yeah, Imperial has remained very similar. This is another one that they changed quite a bit, but it actually is a little bit more reminiscent of the old flag. But yeah, these are definitely old. There's like airbrushing and acrylic paint going on designing all of these. Wow. Yeah, Cybertronic I think benefited a lot of the look of some of the details that they did in the latest version of the role-playing game. Some of the illustrations push it more towards cyberpunk, and the feel of them is a little bit more understandable, I think, in the more 90s artwork. Some of the artwork was odd odd in its representation. So they got Cybertronic a little bit more nailed down. Nice. All right. Well, this has been. Oh. Let's see if I can get this back on here. Yeah, Joe, you're right. This is a very Star Wars like. It does look like a cover of a Star Wars comic book. The pose of the characters there. So this has been the first edition of the Mutant Chronicles Siege of the Citadel. Yeah, it definitely is the old. What was that shield? Like Captain America's early shield was that same sort of like red, white, and blue military kind of seal. But definitely. So this is the Pressman 93 version of Siege of the Citadel. So just concluding, I think it's still going to be probably another month, but Modifius is shipping out the second edition with all of their the supporting expansions and everything. So the core, if you just got the core of second edition, the core box, those went out 2 years ago. They're just finishing up your Dark Legion pledges and all of your add-ons and everything. So this is where it all came from. And it was a pretty honest interpretation. I think they took some of the best parts of it. Oh, look at that. They even got the Ezegul on the cover there. He's teasing his tremendous size from a distance. But this is the original version. And so you can still get your hands on, similarly battered versions of this game online. And I think people are still holding on to some sealed copies, or at least unpunched copies. So you may be able to get something in much nicer condition at some point. But I don't want to break anybody here. Let's scoot down. There we go. But so it was fun to take a look at this and to compare. And join me in about 12 hours, actually about 11 hours now. And we'll go through, we'll do the premiere, and I'll be on the chat for premiere of part 7 of the Complete Mutant Chronicles. So take a look at that playlist if you're not familiar with that series, and let me know what you think. I'm definitely open to criticism about what was included and not included, and the kind of the look of everything. And if you enjoyed it, and and if it's useful to use for kind of giving background for your players, or just for your personal knowledge, so you know what's going on in the setting before you play the digital card game or whatever, because they do make so many references, especially the Doomtrooper collectible card game makes a lot of references to characters that are in the lore that may be minor characters, because they had to come up with so many there were so many expansions to that game. So hopefully this will answer a lot of those questions. But thank you so much for joining me. And we'll do this again in just a few hours. I don't think we're going to do a live stream after the premiere, but I'll definitely be on chat, and hit me up again and really let me know what you thought of the series if you haven't seen it yet, and then what you think of the conclusion, because this last one, it was almost 2 months to get this last one produced, because the script editing, I think, was the hardest part, because I wanted to make sure I got everything in there and then it had a logical flow. And then because it was the last episode of the main timeline, I wanted to kind of do, remember what everything that's gone before, remember what humanity has been through. So there's a little kind of summation at the end that I had to go back and double check all my sources and everything to make sure I had everything in the right order. But I hope you enjoy that. And so we'll be back in just a little bit to go through that. But so this has been the Siege of the Citadel First Edition Mutant Chronicles. So please visit patreon.com/idleredhands to support what we're doing with this lore series and the streams. And hey, thanks, Joe. Take care, and thank you. Thanks for modding in there for me. It's always good to see you online. And visit idleredhands.com for links to our podcasts and videos and everything we've done. We did a review of the Mutant Chronicles role-playing game. I unboxed all kinds of other Mutant Chronicles things. We did flip throughs of the original first 2 editions of the role-playing game and also of Warzone. So there's more coming up there. Oh yeah, you're very welcome, Prototype. Yeah, thanks for tuning in. I really am glad people are enjoying this, and it's great to give some attention to this neglected and kind of ended too soon lore and setting. It was great Modifius went back and really promoted it, so I hope that I hope there's a future for it. I hope there's a new direction for it, and with the new Warzone, with Warzone Eternal coming out, hopefully it'll stay alive and kind of in gamers' minds. So yeah, very cool. And follow us on Twitter as well, at Idle Red Hands. And there's also, of course, the YouTube channel and the Twitch channel, and even a Facebook page. So Idle Red Hands in all of those locations. And yeah, I'm gonna get some sleep and then be back for a a premiere of Part 7. So thanks a lot, everybody, for watching, and we'll do this again sometime. Yeah, I think I want to do, maybe the next thing will be like a flip through, because the 3rd edition of the role-playing game was kind of my biggest lore source, but I really want to show everybody like what's in that book, because you can get that book digitally for like $5. So it's a pretty, if you're interested at all in that setting and playing in that world on the tabletop, it's a really cheap entry point. So see you again very soon. So take care, everybody, and thanks for watching. So yeah, that will be our next part. The next thing you'll see me in is the Part 7 coming up. So take care, and good night.